This right here. This is what I've been saying, man. And now, because there's a chart that's posted that aligns with my viewpoint here, we're going to go out there and make this video and talk about these two players. Because it's not looking good for the Red Wings and the Vancouver Canucks when you analyze these two players and this particular angle of NHL play. Let's go over onto Jay Fresh's Twitter account, because he made this post earlier in the week talking about NHL forwards who don't do stuff. Now, I get it, that's a really weird way to put it, but let's read the post to understand what Jay Fresh means. One of the most popular insults in hockey is quote-unquote cardio merchant. Players who don't seem to do a lot of stuff when they're on the ice. It's pretty vibes-based, but just for fun, I decided to use all three zones and NHL's data to find the players with the least stuff per 60 at 5v5 in 2024-2025. This list compiles players, forwards, in the NHL with their shots and passes, transition plays, offensive zone puck recoveries, defensive zone puck touches, hits, forechecks, takeaways, blocks, penalties taken, and penalties drawn. A lot of stuff in the game of hockey, on the puck and off the puck. And when it comes to the forwards that were the worst at doing stuff in the NHL, you've got JT Compher right there at the top. 51.8 average stuff that he does per 60 minutes, which is one of only 5 forwards in the NHL this year who had fewer than 60 things done per 60 minutes at 5v5. So for JT Compher specifically, for every hour that he plays, he doesn't do stuff for about 8 minutes or so, because his ranking is 51.8. It's really interesting to see how he doesn't do stuff. But if you scroll down, you will see some other names that are interesting here, like one Brock Boeser, who's ranked 17th overall. Now, sure, 17th on a 30-player list isn't bad, but 17th overall in the entire NHL out of all the forwards in the league, I would say that's reasonably bad. And that's not even to discredit what this stat really means. It's not saying, oh, how many goals do you score? How many assists are you able to get? It's just saying, hey, here's the stuff that you do. Brock Boeser, for example, if you look at his chart, he doesn't really draw any penalties. He doesn't really take any penalties. He doesn't really recover the puck in the offensive zone, nor does he contribute too much on the transitions. It's just a matter of whether or not the limited shots that you do take and the passes that you do make end up in points, goals, or assists, which is why there are some guys on this list that are very productive. Dmitry Voronkov is the second least stuff per 60 guy in the NHL this year, and that guy was a monster. Came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he's a first-line player for the Columbus Blue Jackets. There were some other guys that you could say are reasonably productive for their roles. Corey Perry, Arturi Lehkonen, Zach Hyman, Adam Gaudette, Gabe Vilardi. There are a number of guys here who are good hockey players who produce. But for a guy like Brock Boeser, for example, to just be in that spot, and don't worry, we're going to refer back to JT Compher in a second here, but for Brock Boeser to be here, it does start to get me thinking about what it is that he's capable of bringing to the NHL lineup in Vancouver, especially without JT Miller. We've noted this a few times with Boeser. He's worked on his defensive game. He has worked on his passing, his playmaking. Those have really refined themselves over the years. He came into the NHL as a pure on-the-rush sniper, a guy who could bury it from anywhere. He doesn't really do that much nowadays. His 40-goal season last year, he got a lot of those goals in front of the net, rebounds, tip-ins, and cleanup crew type goals. Getting set up by JT Miller on the flank with a backdoor open net type goals. He was not really a guy who displayed the same longer range sniping ability that he did in his prior few seasons, and that's okay. He evolved as a goal scorer. He had his best season goal-wise as a member of the Vancouver Canucks. But around his game, he wasn't really the fastest. He's not really a guy who draws a lot of penalties, and he's not really somebody that has the strongest physical impact. Now, Boeser is smart defensively. We'll give that to him. He puts himself in the right spots and he knows how to battle along the boards. But just looking at some of these statistics, takeaways and blocks, Brock doesn't really do that too well. And then offensive zone puck recoveries, that's a pretty low mark as well. The guy has 2.1 of those per 60 minutes, and he doesn't really touch the puck much as well. If you wanted to go out there and look at the positive guys that are doing the most in the NHL, hey, guess what? Kiefer Sherwood is the most productive forward in the NHL at doing stuff, particularly carried by his 32 hits per 60 minutes, but ultimately that is a different metric entirely. You can see that some of these other guys, I mean, defensive zone puck touches, there are a lot of players here who double Brock Boeser. Offensive zone puck recoveries, there are a lot of people here who double Brock Boeser. And it just goes to show you how odd it is that Brock is in this spot where, after a 25-goal year where he was particularly disappointing, it seems like the pay raise that he's going to get is going to go all the way to $8-point-something million. It just doesn't feel right, in my opinion. My ultimate argument here is that Brock Boeser is probably going to be in a spot to get overpaid this summer, and if the Vancouver Canucks are not the ones doing it, you can start to understand why fans are a little bit more okay with the idea that he gets that money somewhere else. Now, of course, ideally, you would have wanted to see Vancouver trade him away and get some assets in return, but we don't live in a perfect world now, don't we? Especially if you're a Vancouver Canucks hockey fan. Meanwhile, let's go back over onto the Detroit Red Wings and their conversation with JT Compher, because a lot of Wings fans have been responding to this list in particular with a decent amount of concern. Medieval Walrus said this, "Christ, Steve, money and term for a guy in Compher that doesn't pass the eye test, doesn't put up counting stats, and a guy that advanced stats hate too. Will he also be expiring by the time we're ready to win? Most line projections have him as an expensive 4C for 3 more years. He's listed as left wing on our roster. Does this make him a good 4th-line center or a 4th-line left winger? Overpaid for sure, but our bottom 6, depth scoring, and penalty kill all sucked. Is he a good 4th-line center? He was on our first PK this year. That unit was last in the NHL." Another reply goes out there and says when Compher was signed from Colorado, he was a 2nd or 3rd-line center on a cup-winning team that even played some 1 center line minutes at times in a pinch. His game has devolved significantly since coming to Detroit. And that does get a lot more concerning when you just look at the numbers, you look at the dollar amount. JT Compher is 30 years old, making $5.1 million a year till the end of 2027-2028. And this season he had 32 points in 76 games. Just 2 years ago, he had 52 points in 82 games as a member of the Colorado Avalanche. 50 points as a center, middle 6, top 6 kind of guy. That's reasonable for 5.1 mil. But only 30 points, he's now playing in the bottom of the lineup. That is not great. And now you've got folks going out there and saying that, yeah, JT Compher not really playing the best. You want to see more out of these players. They're clock killers. That's what Ken Holland would put them. They don't do anything positive or negative on the ice. They're a wash, invisible. They don't do anything that makes you say, wow, what a great play, or wow, what a terrible play. They're a dead roster spot. And it all comes full circle when you look at this comment here made by Double Jack. "I've been on the sign Boeser bandwagon, but now I'm having second thoughts. It's a move that would either pay off and make Yzerman look like a genius, or it would blow up in his face like the Compher signing. Also, this explains at least in part why the Wild are not high on Rossi. He's not a player we should be interested in." So, that's a really interesting thought. How Brock Boeser is so not doing stuff that it might be even worse in Detroit. I'm starting to wonder if that actually would be more of a critical thought that we need to analyze, but for now, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about how it's not looking good for these two Red Wings and Canucks forwards. Compher and Boeser both listed on the players who are doing the least stuff list, and we didn't even mention Jonathan Berggren, who is also on this list too. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about these two players getting this assessment by the NHL Fancy Stats, and whether or not you think it's fair or actually indicative of the play they bring to the ice. Let me know in the comment section all your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.